Can you hear it loud? The world is ready. Stand up proud. Your story is power. Your passion's the spark. With Innovate AI and i3, you'll leave your
I want to have a conversation a little bit, but also have an opportunity to share some things that I think you might find helpful in your day-to-day. And really with that, when we talk about survival mode, I'm curious, obviously, some of you I've seen yesterday and today both in a lot of our sessions, but would love to hear just what drew you to this particular session. What do you hope to walk away from? Because we've got a lot of different things we can share. And based on our collective background, I think we can offer some things that might be helpful to you. So just what brought you here? Yeah, John.
I had an interview yesterday morning. A friend of mine teaches discrete math at UNLV, and one of his students was interested in cybersecurity. So he introduced me to him, and this kid wanted to interview me for one of his class projects.
Yeah.
And he started asking me about being a small business owner, and I started to talk about how it's not for the weak of heart. There are so many hats that you have to wear, particularly
Yes.
if you're a solopreneur.
Right.
And it's marketing, it's sales, it's finance, it's taxes, it's all these other things.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that brought me here, after having that conversation yesterday morning, kind of reminded me that there are days where I get overwhelmed
Yeah.
with everything that's going on, and
Let-
if something goes wrong.
Let me ask, how many of you have felt that way? A little overwhelmed on some days? Thank you for
You're not.
being so articulate, right?
But it's just, I want to try to be able to rewire my brain,
Excellent.
because there are those times where my anxiety gets the better of me.
Yeah.
And I've got enough emotional IQ to realize that I'm spiraling, but how do I get it back under
Okay.
control in a healthy way?
Yeah, well, we'll make sure you learn some techniques to do that. Thank you for sharing. Other people, yeah.
I've been so I'm in a startup and we just started hiring people, and I'm like, okay, now this feels like the real founder stuff because I have to start managing 8 different things going on, and everything's just going crazy all the time. So I've been in other companies where, like, as soon as I have like a 10-person team, I just start to get overwhelmed with the amount of context switching. So.
Sure. Yeah, that can be. So, yeah, it's a challenge as you scale and grow to figure out, based on your strengths, what's your gift, what's your zone of genius, and how you can level up, focusing on that, who else you need to bring on the team. But also, the biggest part is it's you, right? And your health, your mindset is going to set the tone for the culture and the rest of the leadership team. So that's really key. Others, thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts? I was asking the question. I know some of you just came in a little bit late. Yeah, Raymond.
I've just been seeing a lot, I've heard this through the years, 80-20. I spend 80% of my time on 20%.
Yep.
And my wife is in and I see it there, and it came to light just yesterday in a conversation. It's so true. Just so true. It's like, I gotta be focused. I gotta be careful. I'm feeling the gentleman in the front row, overwhelmed with this cacophony of options and abilities and needs.
Exactly.
Staying focused on the right one.
Okay. So yeah, and that's something we can talk about too. Maybe how you stay focused in the midst of the whirlwind, if you will, that can sometimes surround us. Other things you'd like to learn or get out of today? Because we're here to serve you, and this can be whatever we create. I've got some ideas that I think will be helpful. But
I think I fall into the overthinking cycle, and then it's hard to the priorities and working at home on my own. It gets really hard to stay focused on what is the day-by-day priorities. And I love this subject, so
excellent.
that's what I'm
You're
here.
in the right place.
I would dovetail off of that and just the study of neuroscience. So from the Tony Robbins to the Amy Hubermans, I am so immersed.
Huberman Lab, one of my favorite podcasts. Oh my God.
So it's just learning it firsthand and being in a circle that we can have that conversation and learn.
Yeah.
And whether it's a hack that helps us all grow and empower us, bring it.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for being here.
You know, I just want to say this, the, the awareness that you are already bringing to the table is half the battle, guys. Because when you're aware, you have a choice to go to sleep, stay up, and take that first step forward, yes? And it's when we're not aware, that is where the overwhelm becomes too much, too much. So I want you to pat yourself on the back, because sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for at least acknowledging that I need help, or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, yes? So thank you very much for at least going there. Not everybody can go there.
I would also say just trusting yourself that you're doing the right thing for your business.
Yeah.
And whoever might be relying on that.
Sure.
Within the overwhelm, you're like still like, I have to keep this going.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
always kind of a weighty piece to hold.
It's an important part of it, because that trust and that inner knowing, and how do you arrive at that, right? And be in aligned action as you move forward. And that's why with some of the sessions, you know, yesterday when we talked about, like, what is your why? Nietzsche said, you know, he who has a reason why can bear almost anyhow. Anyhow, not almost, they can bear anyhow. And I think that's really true, because that's the energy, and that's your source of strength in terms of what keeps you going and motivated. I think it's important to recognize that. Yeah.
You speak up just a little bit.
Sure.
I have to move away from the fan. But
Okay.
I'm catching
Well,
most.
please.
Well, I'm farsighted. And
Okay.
I can
Oh,
speak
okay.
better if I said
All right, that's fine. We can speak up. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, that fan puts out a little bit of noise. Anyone else want to share before we get started? Yeah, Monica.
I would say that I'm just curious to see what's the neuroscience hacks for the business side of the house, because I'm a business woman and also a certified yoga instructor. My kind of reset is the wellness side, I got to get out for a long run kind of release. But
Sure.
I'm curious to learn really the tools.
Excellent. Well, so with that, first I want to acknowledge Silver City, Denver, this venue you're in. It's an amazing space. There's actually another conference room, much smaller, but they can do hybrid remote meetings, a conference room table. And there's actually four like bedroom apartments. Like if you're ever doing a retreat, rooftop, great views of downtown Denver. Where periodically they'll do like art exhibits and any types of different events. So just wanted to acknowledge them, and it's just a cool history. It's a building from the 1800s that they preserved, and it's very historic. So having said that, when you look at it is really a crisis. I mean, it's not just founders, because there's a crisis of mental health. I think we all would agree in the nation. But when you look specifically at founders, 72% of founders have some sort of mental health concerns, and that's from a study out of UC Berkeley. And when you look at that, there's a lot to balance. And when you look at the pressures, and some of you, I don't know, anyone working, angel investors, VCs, anybody seed series, like where are you at? Yeah, some of that, those other demands, right, on what's going on. But when you have resilience as a founder, you're going to outperform other peers in the same company, the same industry by 3x. That's the difference that you make. Think about that. It's here. If you can, and you can have that resilience, you're going to be phenomenally successful with that. And even that, in terms of capital being raised, because you can't hide it. Like I did a panel last year. I brought in different VCs, and talking about what they're looking for. I mean, they see hundreds, thousands of these pitches and stuff, and they can recognize the alignment, the congruence, if you will, the confidence of what you do. And they're going to ask those questions too about, tell me a time when you were stressed and how did you handle it? And but there's nothing like that actual, like, how did you react in the situation? But those that have the resilience, they're going to raise 2.5 times more than those that don't. And there's all sorts of scales to measure these things. Like, anyone know Angela Duckworth's work on grit? Fantastic, really short scale. I encourage you to use that tool. If you're interested, I'm happy to share it with you. But there's a lot of things to understand about that because you have skills, and when you execute on that with effort, skill times effort, you're going to get more results is the bottom line. And, you know, what if resilience wasn't just a survival tool, but it's actually a competitive advantage, which look at the data. Some of these things point out it really is, right? Makes sense?
You know, when someone asks you or you hear the word resilience, what comes to mind? What's resilience to you?
Don't give up.
Don't give up. What was that?
Fall down and get back up.
Fall down, get back up. What else? Determination.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. What kind of words are those?
Motivational words.
They're action words. You just gave one hack that I want you to be aware of. Take action. That's a hack. How many of you know that you should take action and you're sitting there going, well, I'll just wait for the better day?
Or overthinking.
Yes, we're overthinking it.
I think it's more about being afraid. Taking that leap of faith.
Leap of faith. How many of you have that fear of taking that leap of faith? You don't have to raise your hand. Just think about it. We all have those fears, yes? And you know, I'm going to tell you a story. You guys okay with that? I love telling stories. How many of you have either young children in your life, you have a niece or nephew in your life, maybe you know someone who has children? Thank you. Take a look at that child. When they are just about to walk and they fall down, what do? They get up and go again. Yes? They're taking action. They're taking action. How many of us as adults and human beings fear that action? Yes? And when we don't take action, what do you think is stopping us? What was that? Doubt. What else? Exhaustion. Yeah. 3 of us fell asleep on that couch over there. So yes, we understand it. I got the proof.
Lunch will do that sometimes.
Just joking. Good. So identifying where you're at and what you're going through. And for resilience, how many of you believe that you have resilience as part of your character? Raise your hand. I hope you all raise your hand. Because resilience sometimes is taken as a negative. Yeah? Oh, you got to be resilient because something happened and you got to show up and prove something. Resilience isn't that, everyone. Resilience is your ability to stand when you want to sit down and cry. Yes? And that's where what we believe in, trust in ourselves, acknowledging that we need help. I was born and raised in Hawaii. We were born to ask for help because that's what Ohana is all about. Yep. And then when I grew up, I was too ashamed to ask for help. What happened? But you know what was amazing is I kept hearing my dad say, if you fall down, doesn't matter. It's how quickly you stand up. Yes? That is resilience in itself. And so the next time you do have that fear, I want you to think of a word that's opposite of fear. What would that word look like? Hope? Courage? Okay. Pick your word right now. Let me give you something to do. Pick the word that you want that's opposite of fear. And I want you to take your notebook out. And I want you to write that word that is opposite of fear in an I am statement. In an I am statement. What would that sound like? I see you smiling. You want to share?
I am brave.
I am brave. I love it. Who else?
I am confident.
I am confident. You know what? You just gave me goosebumps. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you said, I am confident, did you guys see that beautiful smile that came across?
I almost said something out loud. I'm like, oh my God, like it was radiating, like just amazing, that smile. Like
That
you could
is
feel
priceless.
it, like with every fiber of her being,
I
that
am
was being
confident.
clear, right?
One more
Wow.
person.
Thank you for that. Thanks for calling that out. I was like,
One
oh my
more.
God.
I'm bold.
I am bold. Tell me more about being bold.
Unafraid.
What else comes to mind?
Daring.
Daring. Okay, you start to see the goosebumps coming up, yes? I'm bold. I'm not afraid. I'm unstoppable. You see that? That's a big difference, yes? I fear. I'm brave. I am confident. That is priceless. That is resilience. That's resilience, everyone.
You know, you mentioned the child before walking. How long would you wait for a child to learn to walk?
Until they learn.
Until they learn, right?
That's right.
So what happens, just like you were saying, like with the family, like asking for help, like, so what's different when we get older from that mindset until you learn? I mean, and also your fear of what? Fear of failure. What does that mean? What is failure? And I talked about this yesterday. Failure is only feedback. So I want to fail freaking fast and learn a lot. That's exciting. Bring it on, right? What does that look like? It's that slight reframe. Failure is only feedback. Right? There's no such thing really as failure. The only thing would be the failure would be if I don't learn, I don't get the feedback, and I don't pay attention to it, right? Or adjust course because of what I'm learning. So, yeah. So, you know, the thing is to think about stress too, because it's our interpretation of what's going on. And this is from Alicia Crum out of Stanford. I think it's a very concise statement because stress is energy, and you frame it right, it'll fuel your growth. And actually, interestingly enough, this goes back a lot of years. 30 years ago, I was doing research with the American College of Emergency Physicians, studying burnout among emergency medical physicians and stress, of course. And when you think about stress, and people think stress is negative, but there's eustress. Hans Selye did that original research around that. And again, it's the meaning. Nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. It's our interpretation. And Viktor Frankl talks about between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is the freedom to choose your own reaction. Because you can, and I know I felt like it this morning, although no one cut me off, but the traffic was really like I was stopped on the highway. But you ever have that happen? Like someone cuts you off or does something? And we saw somebody almost in an accident out here, cut across right on Larimer Street yesterday, made a left turn across a lane, and this person had to slam on there. I'm like, oh my God. Like, but how do you react or how do you respond to that? And for a lot of people, that ruins the rest of their day. Like, you have a choice. And that person's just driving on oblivious to what they did, you know, but yet your interpretation and the meaning and the power you're giving somebody else over you can make a big difference, right? So your mindset about stress is going to change how you feel about it. Is it good or bad? And, you know, the idea of meaning is really important too, to understand your meaning and your quest in what you're doing with your business, with your life, and the man's search for meaning, which was the book that Viktor Frankl read. Anyone read that book in here? A few people? Probably one of the most profound books, because when you lose meaning, or when you don't have meaning in your life, you lose hope. And that's when people would die, even in the severest. He was a survivor of the concentration camps, psychologist from Vienna. And, it's that hope. It's some of the words that you were talking about before that really makes a difference. And it literally affects your physiology when you understand the nature of stress, and it can enhance what's going on in terms of boosting your performance. So, and I think there's other people that probably recognize this, but it's the amygdala hijack, right? How many of you have heard that term? Okay, a few of you. I mean, your brain is wired in a way that when you're stressed, it's literally your reptilian brain, basically, that's coming out. It's like that caveman running from that saber wolf tiger or whatever, like those types of things. But the threats we have in our environment are really different than today, like in the workplace or with, the cash flow and other things that are going on. But ultimately, it's a rapid threat response that occurs. And what happens is your prefrontal cortex is where your decision making, your rational thought process basically shuts down. And you're just like, you're sympathetic, you got your parasympathetic nervous system that just kicks in. It's like fight or flight, right? What do you do? So recognizing that is really important when it comes to stress, because you're the one responsible for helping recognize when you start feeling that. Like you were talking earlier about, John, that overload, like, have you ever felt like that? Oh my God, like your chest tightens, or what are you like noticing when you are stressed? Like, or everyone has a different reaction, but do you know what that is for you? What's like the first thing that you can identify when you start feeling what you have labeled maybe bad stress or stress? Anyone want to share? Like,
I freeze.
You freeze. Okay. Literally, like, yeah.
The brain can define what to do and
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Different reaction? Different things?
Change in breath,
Yeah. And in what way?
just it's tighter.
Yeah.
It's not as long, maybe a little bit more short breath.
Okay.
Versus an elongated, deeper breath.
Yeah. Beautiful. Anyone else? Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Nausea.
What was that?
Nausea.
Nausea. Okay. Yeah. For sure. That's something you'd pay attention to, right? And how you experience all those different things, makes a difference. So I'm so pleased that you mentioned breath, because breath is probably the most powerful thing you have that you can hack, right? Think about it. What happens if you hold your breath? You die, right? If you're not breathing. So, and there's all sorts of different breathing techniques. And for some of you, and there's so many different ways, but I remember probably a year ago or more, I wrote a LinkedIn article about like 5 or 6 different hacks for breathing. There's all sorts of different techniques that you can use. But I think in general, this is the 4-2-6. There's the 4-4-4. There's all sorts of different variations, and those numbers refer to the numbers of seconds that you're actually breathing in and out, and also how you're breathing. Are you breathing from your diaphragm, or are you just like shallow breathing, right? Which is very different in terms of how you fill your belly and everything else. So when your diaphragm is breathing, you're filling it from your belly and all the way up, through your lungs. And then you're basically, and we're going to do this in a minute. We'll go ahead and just do it. It's a really quick thing, but you will notice a difference. And I've shared this. I did training with emergency physicians on, like, how do you, after somebody codes in a room, how do you walk into the next room and have a smile on your face? Like, is that resilient? Like, think about those skills. And so they are things you can learn to do. And then, holding your breath for a count of 2 in this case. And what happens is when you that brief pause, it allows the oxygen to basically reset. It's a reset real quick for your nervous system. Just say, I'm okay. Anyone do a cold plunge? Anyone in here? Okay, love it. So I remember when I do cold plunges. And I remember when I first did it, like, what happens when you get in that cold water?
Shock.
Like, you're like shocked, and you're like, what type of breathing do you have?
Shallow.
Yeah, like you're like, and you're shivering and stuff. Like, so the opposite is when you actually control your breathing and you settle into that deep rhythmic breathing. And whether it's Wim Hof, the Iceman, like learning like how does he breathe and what does that look like? There's ways of doing things, but you're holding that breath. And then you're exchanging it. And that exhale, that's the key, because if you hold your breath, you die, right? If you continue holding it.
Anybody try that?
Yeah, let's try that today. See how long we can go. But it basically, once you do that, it resets your parasympathetic system. And then what happens, the amygdala, that hijack, the hijackers are gone. They're like, oh, we're good. We'll go back and activate that prefrontal cortex for you. So let's just as a group do a breath and just notice how you're feeling right now though before this. Just as you sit there, noticing your bottom, the chair supporting your body. If you need to move your feet around and get centered and grounded, on your shoulders, whatever, roll your neck, whatever, releasing any tension that you may have had up until now. And so we're just gonna breathe, and I'm just gonna count of 4, and as I count to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm gonna ask you to inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hold, and then we'll hold for 1, 2, and then I'm gonna ask you to exhale for 6 counts. So don't, like your normal breath, that's a long exhale. So anticipate that, all right? You up to play with us? All right, excellent. So let's go ahead and breathe in for a count of 4. So take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Nice. Okay. And notice how those shoulders really loosen. Let's just do it again. One more time. We're going to breathe into a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 1, 2, and then exhale out for the count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? All right. Let's do one last one. All right. We're going to breathe in again. Count of 4. Ready? Take a breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. And now notice what's different. Love to hear. What's that? Sleepy. Wow, so you went from like stress to sleep. Okay, that's pretty good. Whoops. Peaceful. Okay. I'll figure this out. Excuse me a second. Something like that. Too relaxed. The banner's relaxing for me now too. We'll figure it out. Other comments though?
Definitely feel calmer.
Yeah. In what way? Where do you notice you feel calmer? How do you know you're calmer?
My breath is deeper, and just somehow feel the pace is slowing down.
Right. Great. Thank you, Monique. Great observation. Did you have a comment over there? Or, yeah.
The tension just went out of my arms and legs. I didn't even realize I was.
Nice.
And it happened on the exhales after 4.
Yeah.
So, just a release of the tension.
Beautiful. You know, it's amazing. And I was doing some training with the emergency department earlier this year. And one of the nurses, and we were doing some other things too, actually incorporating, some of you were here earlier when we were talking about the personality types. And one of the nurses recognized that her stress code was how she was actually living every day. She was in her 3rd position, for those of you who were at that earlier session. And it was just an aha. She's like, oh my God, like my body is in a constant state of stress. And like you, Katie, until she did that, she's like, oh my God, like this is the first time in months that I actually felt different. Like I forgot what it was like to be myself and not feel that stress. Like, and I'm like, you felt it even when like you left work and you still, she's like, yes, like it was just because I'd come home and I'm thinking about all this stuff and who died and like the situations I had. So it can be a game changer. that simple hack. Other experiences? Anyone else? Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. So the other thing I want to talk about, or maybe anything else you want to add before we move on?
You know, with the breath, I'm going to give you another exercise. For those of you who could not go through the breathing, here's another hack for you. It's a command called stop, breathe, shift, and continue. Stop, breathe, shift, continue. And what that does is it's an action that you can take to reset your whole your whole body. So what do we mean by that? Well, you stop. Whatever's happening, you just stop. You take that deep breath and exhale. And a shift could be the shift of your eyes or your head, or a bigger shift is this, just walk forward. That's a shift. And I know I always tell my coaching clients, when you want to shift, don't shift this way. Don't take that shift backwards. You take shifts forward. You take shifts sideways. That's a shift. Okay? So for those of you who can't concentrate on the breath, add action to it. Stop, breathe, shift, continue. And that allows your body to be okay about decisions you may not be comfortable with. Yes? So when you're able to, when you're not thinking, now this may be woo-woo for you all, but it's a connection to nature and Mother Earth. Take your shoes off, go find a patch of glass, not glass. that was a patch of grass, okay? I have, but it's grass. You go find grass. Not turf, guys, okay? Real grass. And just take your shoes off. How many of you have headaches? If you're stressed, you have headaches, take your shoes off, go find a patch of grass, stand in it, take a deep breath. So you stop, you breathe, you step on that grass, and then you continue. You'll be surprised that the headache goes away. Okay? And that's just a reset. It's your nervous system being reset. Because as humans, we don't stop. Huh? Doc and I are guilty of that. I'm going to admit to that, Doc. We wanted all of our sessions to be so good that we had naps. We didn't sleep. We had naps. But understanding some of the tools that you can actually incorporate to help you sustain, not for long term, but sustain that energy, will help you to really get in touch with your nervous system. And as human beings, not being in touch with their nervous system is where we go into overwhelm. Okay? I'm going to tell you one story about a friend of mine who has a child. And I didn't know what to say when I first heard this. The child is 6 years old. And she said, she was having some trouble. She was a little overwhelmed. And this is what she told me. I said, honey, are you okay? She goes, oh, I'm just having an anxiety attack. A 6-year-old. Yes, a 6-year-old. So you need to understand the words that we say and use also have impact on us. I say words have power, yes? And so if a 6-year-old can tell me she's having an anxiety attack, my first thing was, well, what does an anxiety attack look like? Oh, I don't know. My mom just told me I'm having an anxiety attack. I want you to be careful about that. Okay? So the languaging we start to use and how we talk to ourselves, very, very important. Okay? And making those little shifts. And I say action. Take that action. Call someone. Take a deep breath. Stop what you're doing. And then shift. That's a big one, guys. We stop and we breathe. But that doesn't help at that point. Take a shift and then move forward. Got it?
Yeah. Yeah, so powerful when you think about the power of words and also just how we interpret it. Like you said, like, how did you know that? And, also, is it fear or excitement that you're experiencing, right? That energy that we see is nervous energy. Is it anxiety? It's like, obviously, maybe he's an amazing speaker trainer. And how many of you, like, they say, have a fear of public speaking? They say, people would rather die than speak or whatever, so, but ultimately, that interpretation of what's going on in your body as you think about it differently, like, this is exciting. I have an opportunity to share something with all these people that's going to maybe have an impact on their life versus like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like it's your thought process behind that makes a big difference. So I think it's really important too, because as you talk about that process, even that Mamie just laid out, there's a pattern to it. There's a framework for stopping and ultimately shifting, right? And there's other things you can do, but you want to make sure that you've got a chain of events so that when you first have that awareness, easily and automatically you think, stop, breathe, right? Shift or whatever it is, or stop and you're going to do the 4-2-6 or whatever it is for you. Or when that negativity comes into play, like I am confident, I am bold. You hear that little voice saying you're not worthy, you don't deserve it, you don't, whatever it is, you recognize it and you've got the I am statement ready to go. And the power of tiny habits, having studied human performance for decades, willpower doesn't work. It just doesn't. And I shared some examples of that during a session yesterday. But I think the thing is understanding and recognizing the role your environment plays, whether it's the grass and the importance of that, or even, I know for me, having a plant in my office that's a living plant is really important. We have a lot of other plants in the house and things, but that energy that you're bringing into your space, because your body is absorbing that all the time. And plants know that and they can sense all that's going on. But it's your emotions that create the habits. And it's recognizing that. And ultimately, the power of the tiny habits. Some of you, anyone read B.J. Fogg's book, Tiny Habits? There's Atomic Habits and a bunch of other ones. So great. So some people it's really simple. And whether it's for weight loss, healthy eating, stopping smoking, or whatever it is, but you make it tiny, so small it's impossible to fail. Because what happens is you're creating a win, like, oh, I did that. Like, and one of the examples, and I shared this, but because I did it, I was like, that's a funny one, but let me try it. He talks about, he wanted to get in shape. He's like, well, every time after I go to the bathroom, I'm going to do a push-up. And I'm like, that's a weird sort of sequence, but it's like, all right. I didn't do it in any public bathrooms, though. But ultimately, it's just like this idea that you're setting an intention and it's anchored to something that you do. So whether it's, when I get up, I'm going to have a glass of water, or I'm going to take my vitamins and have a glass of water, and I'm going to go put my feet on the grass, or I'm going to put on my shoes and go for a walk. Or when I get up, I already have my running equipment laid out because I know that's something that I want to do, and it's like right there. It's like that person that wants to learn guitar. It's like, well, where's your guitar? Well, I think it's up in the closet. I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while. Well, what would happen if you put it in a room that you're going to walk through every day and it's right smack in the middle? Do you think you're going to ignore it? No. And it's no different. The example I shared yesterday is over the holidays, we have all these cookies and candies and things that just people give you, and it's all like there. And it's like every time I'm walking by, it's like, that looks like a good, you're just grabbing it, right? It's easy, it's accessible, but get rid of it. I don't have that problem, right? So, but you anchor it to an existing routine. Dentists love it because it's like brush your teeth and floss. Okay, it's not that like after I do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to maybe rinse my mouth. And then you celebrate it, the fact that you did it in whatever way you want, but you're actually anchoring that into a routine. And that's how lasting behavior occurs. It's not through discipline. And so the example here is like when I close my laptop at day's end, I will write down one win from today. Like, think about that. I have a routine every morning, and actually a different one in the evening. I always reflect on, what did I learn today? What am I going to do differently tomorrow? What were my wins? And, what was the best part of my day? But I know, like, when I go and lay down, or I journal as well, different things in the morning, but it's setting that attention. So I want you to think about one thing you're grateful for. Just right now, take a minute and pause and really think about, what are you grateful for in your life? What's one thing? And after you thought of the first thing, think of another thing you're grateful for. And notice the third thing that you're grateful for, whatever it is, and how that feels. And whether you journal about it, or if that becomes a habit where you wake up and you say, I am grateful to be alive today. Think about that. I know for me, every day is precious. And some of you heard me talk about my dad being killed in a car accident. So the fact that I'm here today, don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, but I'm grateful for the time I have today. That I'm still, like, I woke up and I'm here. So gratitude is a really powerful thing. And so you can design your resilience habit. This is like that chaining, that anchoring. And so I invite you to think about one thing. What's one thing? What's one new habit maybe that you haven't been doing that you'd like to start doing? Think about something for a minute. And if you have it, write it down. Like, I'd like to do this. And then what you're going to do is, when I blank, what's the trigger? What's the thing that you're going to do that's going to then trigger the next action? So when I brush my teeth, I will floss. Whatever it is, right? When I go to the bathroom, I'll do a push-up. I mean, okay? You get the idea. So just think of something for you. When I get my morning coffee, I'll take 2 deep breaths and set one intention for the day. Simple, right? So think about something that you have. Anyone want to share something you came up with? Yeah.
I was just going to share this. Years ago, I was driving to work, I heard this thing on the radio, and they said, right before you go to bed, write down 3 things that went well, or you're grateful for, something, and then get up and read them the next morning, and that it will, like, they've done this study, and it shows people are happy when they do this. I was pretty suspicious of that. But I've been doing it now for like 20 years, and I swear if I forget to do it, my mind, like, deteriorates over a few days. But if I do it every night, it really helps my attitude.
Absolutely.
Very strange.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Love that. One more share. Yeah.
Sure. I make a cup of tea every morning. A great time to just walk out the front door for a minute. Touch the grass or the snow, whatever we got.
No.
The
Awesome.
warm tea, right?
Yeah.
Snow, but I do this already, right? It's easy. The door's right there.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you so much. So the other thing is, when you have meaning and emotion and you think about it, like, we know, like, obviously we just had 9/11. Like, how many of you remember where you were when that 9/11 occurred? Why do you remember that? Where were you on 9/13 of that same year? Like, I don't know. Like, or whatever it is, when somebody is shot, assassinated, or something like that happens. But it's the meaning, the emotion, integration, and repetition. Again, I want to share, this idea of reframing is really powerful. If you think about a stressful situation you might have right now, what's something stressful that's in your life? And just think about it for a minute. And notice, as a founder or whatever you're doing right now, what's your current story? What meaning are you giving to the current situation? What is it about that situation that up until now you've thought of as stressful? And how would you rewrite that? And if you were to say, like, the example, like, if this was something I had been interpreting as failure or evidence of being a failure, what new meaning could I give it that would be a lesson for me to move forward? What am I meant to learn from this? We like to talk about these simulations we encounter, but what could this be training for? If you view it as something that was given to you, and it's really a blessing that you're having this encounter, because it's meant to, like what they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? think about it. I don't know, maybe if you have thoughts on that one, but anything you want to add?
You know, think about all the things that you do to take you out of that state that brings your energy up. You know, like she said, I am confident. And as soon as she said it, she just lit up. Now that is a moment. Yes, that's the moment that I would want to capture, because that is the moment that will carry me through the times that I need to shift out of. Yes? And so this is where reframing, you know, I worked 35 years, guys, with Special Olympics. And working with Special Olympians gave me joy. You know why? Because they did not know how to fail. And when 5 of my athletes were running the 100-meter dash, and one of them fell down, 4 people went back to pick them up and cross the finish line. That's a reframe. And when someone told me, Mamie Jean, George, don't get too tied up with George, because George will never remember you. I'm like, oh, yeah, don't ever tell Mamie never. And you know, I went home to Honolulu, I'd say 15 years later, because I had to go to a funeral of one of the students that I watched grow up. You know, I was in Walmart, and I hear somebody in the distance yell, Mickey, because he could not say Mamie. And there was George running full blast through to me in Walmart. And I watched him as he was coming to me at full speed, and all I did was step aside, because if I didn't, he would have run me over, right? But that George remembered me for over 26 years. That's a reframe. That is what I want you to find in your life to help carry you forward. Because in those moments where you could feel that smile that she gave me when she said, I am confident, the smile you gave me when you said, I am brave. And I told you I got goosebumps. I call those goosebump moments. In Hawaii, we call it chicken skin, okay, guys? But it's those moments that make big differences in our lives. And when we think about how do we shift the energy, how do we shift the languaging, how do we shift our lives, those are the shifts that make big differences. And the shifts are small. The shifts are small. And that's what I want you to realize. You know, we talked, someone said, maybe I came back because you guys are going to talk about neuroscience. Everything we do to help ourselves be better contributes to our well-being. And I want you to understand that as human beings, we have one thing that people, that everything else can't top. That is the ability to feel. It's the ability to be able to connect and reach out and understand, yes, that you know what, every single day is not a happy day, and it's okay. Because we've been told that we have to be happy all the time. My God, you should hear what I say when someone told me that. Because I am always happy all the time, but guess what? It's a happy that isn't true all the time. Because really, I want to just tear you apart, but I smile. We've been conditioned to do that. So how's about if we take that conditioning and we shift it so that we're not looking at that negative side, but we can then acknowledge, be aware, and then make that difference. Can you imagine if you're doing that in your businesses? What kind of environment do you think you would have? I'm going to say this. I can tell you I witnessed it. For 35 years, we were able to impact 12,000 Special Olympians. You know how many volunteers it took me to support that program? 20,000. 20,000. So when you're able to pull that energy together, the shift becomes small, but small things over time make big differences, yes? And that is how we make a difference in this world. And it all starts with who? Yeah, you better point to yourself because it starts with us. We cannot count on someone else to bring that happiness for us. Okay? She did not need us to say, I am confident. She did not need that. Sorry, I keep picking on you, hon. But that was a priceless moment there. And Doc saw it.
Yeah.
I just have a tendency to articulate it. How's that? Yes. And so it's those moments that you acknowledge the people that you work with. You know, Tony Robbins said, if I can make a difference in one life, how many lives? One. Just one. I can ripple effect. Everybody know what a ripple is? Yes. Yeah, in Hawaii we call it tsunamis. We can ripple effect out to 350,000 people. Wow. Yeah, that's a big wow.
From one person.
One person. And that's how I've reframed my life. Doc knows this. When I can impact the life of one person and I can ripple effect out to 350,000, is that a boom, bada bang? Yes, it is. And I don't even have to acknowledge it, it just ripples out. So start with you and acknowledge that sometimes we're going to need help. And acknowledge that every day is not a happy day. And it's okay. But if we stop, breathe, shift, and continue, and you teach that to one other person, like Nelson Mandela did, can you imagine the impact we can make together? That is powerful. Powerful.
Very powerful. So the other thing, and we're wrapping up, I know, we got another session that's starting in a minute, is the power of visualization and thinking about that. Your future self, what do you see in the future? And stepping into that future being, if you will. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Obviously, I listen to the cold, I'm a fan of the cold plunge. I mean, it actually, your BDNF increases, your brain-derived neurotropic factor. There's evidence about what that impact has. Obviously, you want to consult with a physician. I'm not saying everyone should do it, but there's physical benefits to it. But it's embodying the practice. It's the tiny habits. It's the breath reset. It's the meaning reframe. All those things are so powerful. And the other thing that I'd invite you to do, anyone know what this pose is? Right? Let's get up real quick. I want to see you do a power pose before we walk out of here. And notice how you feel when you are power posing and what that does for you. There's something different about your physiology when you're doing that, right? Like Superman, like I'm invincible. And you can see depressed people. We were talking about that earlier, and that brilliant smile that she had when she said she was confident and is confident. Like you can't be depressed and smile. And you can use a pen or something in your teeth to smile. And hold that in there, even though you're freaking pissed off. And you will shift your physiology. And you also, even just putting your shoulders back, like a depressed person, like that, like, how are you feeling? Like, you can tell when, like, versus, like, different. Anyone know what this symbol is? Like, who does that? Like, what do people do? Victory, right? So changing your body, your physiology, can very quickly get you out of that. So next time you feel like, oh, just go, I got this. I'm brave. I'm confident, right? And remember the breath, okay? So thank you for playing with us. Appreciate it.
Waiting, the moment is now.